I've made plenty of mistakes in my garden over the years, and if you're like me, you know the sting of realizing that what you thought was helping your soil might have been holding it back all along. We gardeners tend to believe that more is better, especially when it comes to manure. But what if I told you that December, the quietest month in the garden, holds the secret to unlocking natural fertility without hauling a single bucket of manure? Stay with me to discover a winter soil practice that changed my harvests and might change yours too.
For generations, manure has been hailed as the holy grail of soil nutrition, a symbol of abundance, fertility, and farm wisdom. And while there's truth in that tradition, it's also a story that's often told without its other half. Over the years, I learned that treating manure like a silver bullet can lead to the exact problems we're trying to avoid. It's a bit like feeding a child nothing but cake, rich, filling, but far from balanced. When manure is applied too often or in too large quantities, especially fresh or overly nitrogen-rich manure, the soil can become what I call spoiled. Nutrients tip off balance, microbial life struggles to find equilibrium, and the plants, instead of thriving, respond with heavy, lush leaves yet weak root systems, becoming susceptible to disease or frostbite. It's overfeeding in the most literal sense, and like an overwatered plant, the consequences are subtle at first, then sudden. There's also the question of salts and pathogens, which fresh manure often contains. December soil, resting in winter's embrace, doesn't need those heavy inputs. Instead, what it needs is peace, a chance to breathe, to digest what's already there, to rebuild its structure from within. Healthy soil isn't built by force-feeding nutrients. It's built by balance, patience, and knowing when to step back. Which brings me to the heart of this video. There's a gentler, richer, and wiser way to nourish your garden during these cold months, one that doesn't require a single scoop of manure.
December. While the world above ground sleeps, life beneath continues steadily, silently, tirelessly. Soil, in its wintry slumber, is not dead. It is gathering strength. It is digesting. It is transforming every tiny remnant of root, every fallen leaf, every dying blade into what will become spring's first nourishment. All we need to do is let it happen, and maybe give it just the smallest push in the right direction. One of the most powerful soil-building techniques I learned came from watching forests. They don't rely on manure. They don't till. They don't even clean up for winter. Instead, they let nature do its work. Fallen leaves settle. Fungi weave threads through the earth, and everything breaks down at its own quiet pace. And that's the trick, allowing the soil to heal itself. In the garden, we can mimic that process through gentle techniques like winter mulching, layering organic matter, and protecting exposed soil. These practices encourage microbial life to thrive, even at low temperatures. While manure brings a quick burst of nutrients, this quiet winter approach builds long-term fertility, humus, the dark, rich substance that holds water, nurtures roots, and creates self-sustaining fertility. And you don't need to touch manure to make it happen. A handful of leaves, a layer of straw, a bit of kitchen scrap if your ground isn't frozen solid. That's all it takes. In December, the best thing you can do for your soil is not to feed it, but to restore it. To step back and let the slow ministry of winter unfold beneath your feet.
In the quietest months, when the garden lies under frost or even snow, it's easy to assume everything is asleep. But the truth is, winter is a season of invisible protection. And one of the greatest tools we have in this season is a simple one: cover crops. These are more than just plants. They're guardians, healers, and silent workers beneath the frozen ground. Cover crops like winter rye, crimson clover, or even field peas are often sown in late fall, just before the temperatures dip. Once the frost arrives, they don't simply stop. They slow, yes, but below the surface, their roots remain alive and active. Even under the weight of snow, these roots do crucial work. They hold the soil in place against unforgiving winter winds, preventing erosion and keeping nutrients from washing away. Without roots, each snowmelt becomes a quiet nutrient fief, washing away treasures our spring vegetables depend on. But perhaps the most overlooked miracle of cover crops happens when they die. As spring arrives and it's time to plant, these once vibrant plants begin to decompose, their structure collapsing gently into the soil. And in that collapse lies true fertility. Their roots, which once held the soil, now create channels, pathways for air, water, microbes, and eventually plant roots. The above-ground parts turn into organic matter, slowly feeding the soil in a controlled, natural way. No burn, no dump of nitrogen like manure, just steady, measured nourishment. If you've ever watched a field of nothing but dead stubble and wondered at its purpose, this is it. Those are the remains of a winter cover crop, doing more for the soil than any pile of manure could in that moment. Winter cover is a promise to the earth. I will protect you while you rest. And in return, the earth wakes up come spring, stronger, richer, and ready to reward your patience.
There's a certain grace in decay, something deeply noble in the slow breakdown of what once was vibrant. So much of gardening is about life and growth, but in December, the most vital work happens not in growth, but in decay. This is the season when everything we once took for granted in the garden, leaves, stalks, roots, spent plants, becomes a gift to the soil, but only if we let it happen. In a world obsessed with tidiness, there's a temptation to clear everything away for winter. Rake every leaf, clip every dried stem, leave the beds bare. And yet, bare soil in winter is an open wound. It loses moisture, it loses warmth, it loses nutrients. But when we leave organic matter to decay, we allow the earth to heal itself. Every leaf becomes a blanket. Every dried stalk becomes a shelter. And beneath it all, the microorganisms celebrate a feast. Decay is not death. It is transformation. The process might be invisible to us. No movement, no green shoots, no flowers. But this stillness is alive with microscopic activity. Bacteria, fungi, and soil insects break down the materials bit by bit. They turn leaves into humus, stems into carbon, roots into resilience. And come spring, when a shovel turns that soil, the fragrance is unmistakable, earthy, rich, alive. No manure pile can imitate that scent or the structure it creates. One of the greatest lessons my garden ever taught me was learning to leave things alone, to trust that stillness has its place, to see decay not as neglect, but as devotion. Feeding the soil doesn't always mean adding something new. Sometimes it means simply allowing what already exists to return where it belongs, back into the earth, quietly, fully, beautifully.
When we think of soil, most of us think in terms of nutrients. We ask, does it have enough nitrogen, enough phosphorus, enough potassium? Should I add blood meal, bone meal, or manure? But the truth is, fertility is not just about nutrients. The foundation of a thriving garden begins with structure, and structure is where most gardeners go wrong. Think of soil like a house. You could fill it with the best food, furniture, and supplies, but if the house itself is crumbling, none of it matters. Plants behave the same way. You can feed them all the nutrients they crave, but if the soil is compacted, poorly aerated, or unable to hold water, those nutrients are wasted. They leach away, they burn roots, they invite disease. Soil structure is the arrangement of its particles, sand, silt, clay, and more importantly, the spaces between them. These spaces, called pore spaces, hold water, and allow air to move. They let roots breathe. They create channels for microbes and worms. Healthy soil structure is like a sponge, firm yet airy, able to absorb water without getting soggy and drain without drying to dust. And the miracle is, you cannot buy structure in a bag. You build it, gradually, patiently, through organic matter, through decayed leaves and roots, through the annual freeze-thaw cycles that crack apart chunks of dirt and turn them into crumbly aggregates, through roots that grow down, die off, and leave highways for new roots to follow. Every time a plant dies in your soil and decomposes in place, structure improves, not through nutrients, but through architecture. Manure and fertilizers do not build structure. In fact, too much of them can harm it by creating salt buildup and killing beneficial fungal networks. Natural soil fertility begins with structure, and structure begins with patience. A winter left silent, covered by mulch or a cover crop, is doing more work than a full growing season with all the amendments money can buy. Once you truly understand the power of structure, you stop thinking like a feeder of plants and begin thinking like a builder of soil. You look beyond immediate growth and into long-term health. That quiet shift in mindset, that's when gardens start to thrive, not just for a season, but for generations.
December. To most gardeners, it feels like the end, the final curtain of the year when the tools are put away and the ground lies still. But if you listen closely, December is not silence, it's anticipation. And the gardeners who understand the rhythm of nature know that this month is not dead time, it's preparation time. Nature practices patience better than any human. Every cycle has purpose, even if we cannot see it. In December, the days are short, the soil is cold, and life appears to fade. But beneath the frost, roots are alive. Microbes are slow, yes, but they are not asleep. The earth is rebuilding itself in preparation for everything that will bloom in spring. And that means this is the perfect moment to give your soil what it needs. Not tomorrow, not March, now. Why December? Because this is the month where amendments finally get time to settle in without disruption. Spread a layer of leaf mulch or compost now, and the freeze-thaw cycles of winter will work them into the soil gently, rhythmically. The snow will keep them moist. Worms and microbes will slowly rise to feed before sinking back down. By spring, it won't be a pile of scraps. It will be transformed. Ready-made humus waiting for roots to wake. Most gardeners think soil work is spring work, but spring is too late. That's planting time, and good soil takes months to prepare. December gives us the advantage of stillness. No competing roots, no frantic schedules, just cold, quiet integration. It's a time when we step back from growth and trust the earth to do what it's always done, rebuild itself when given the raw materials and the time. So yes, while others are indoors with seed catalogs and warm drinks, the wise gardener steps outside in December. They spread mulch, they sow winter cover, they tuck the garden in before the deepest cold arrives. Not because they expect immediate results, but because they know abundance is built in the dark, not in the light.
There's a strange kind of pressure in modern gardening, a pressure to do, to spread, to turn, to fertilize, to add. The belief that a good gardener is constantly in motion, constantly making decisions, correcting imbalances, and applying inputs, especially manure, to keep things growing. And while this instinct to help the garden is noble, it's also deeply flawed. Because in our rush to nourish our plants, we often starve the soil of what it needs most, rest. Let's be honest, manure isn't evil, it has its place. But the belief that manure is the only or even the best way to feed the soil is a myth passed down through generations of well-intentioned mistakes. Our ancestors used manure because it was available, because it was an obvious source of nutrients. But what they didn't always see is what we often miss today. Adding too much, too often, can choke the soil instead of feeding it. When you cover the soil with heavy manure every year, you might get a burst of growth, but you also disrupt the natural balance. Manure, especially fresh, is high in salts, high in nitrogen, and often sterilizing to beneficial fungi, the very organisms responsible for long-term fertility. What you gain in fast leaf growth, you lose in soil diversity. What you see above ground blinds you to what dies beneath it. The art of doing less begins with recognizing that the soil already knows how to rebuild itself. Nature never spreads manure in concentrated piles. It drops leaves, it sheds roots, it lets plants live and die where they stand. It feeds the land quietly, slowly, and evenly. Winter is the master of this. It doesn't feed the soil by force, it feeds it by letting it rest. When we resist the urge to interfere, something remarkable happens. The biological machine beneath the surface comes alive. Fungal networks recover. Earthworms return. Microbes establish stable communities that regulate moisture and nutrients better than any fertilizer ever could. And when the freeze and thaw come, it cracks the earth just enough to pull in oxygen, improving structure more effectively than tilling ever will. Doing less is not laziness, it's trust. Trust that the soil remembers how to be fertile. Trust that the cycle of death and rebirth needs no middleman. Trust that we are invited to assist, not control. When we stop the constant additions and instead give soil cover, time, and stillness, we stop gardening against nature and start gardening with it. You are not abandoning your garden by withholding manure. You are freeing it to rebuild on its own terms. And that simple shift can turn a depleted patch of dirt into a living, breathing system again. Not overnight, not through force, but through patience and the courage to do less.
Every gardener knows the thrill of harvest, that first tomato, that first potato forked up from the earth, the crisp snap of a pea pod in the morning. It's what we live for, the proof that our work has meaning. But there is a quieter harvest few speak about, a harvest measured not in pounds of produce, but in years of self-sustaining abundance, and it only comes to those who are willing to wait. When you trust the slow seasons, you begin to understand that gardening is not a series of tasks, it's a partnership, a conversation. And sometimes the most meaningful part of that conversation is silence. December, January, and February are not dead months. They're when the unseen work is done, when plants root deeply, soil life reorganizes, and fertility is rebuilt, not by what you add, but by what you allow. When you skip the manure and give the earth back its stillness, covered by a simple blanket of leaves or straw, something profound happens over time. The soil doesn't just regain nutrients, it regains memory. It begins to store not just food, but stability. It learns to feed itself, regulate its own moisture, and outcompete pests and diseases. Your job slowly shifts from fixing your soil to simply tending it, noticing, responding, and letting it breathe. The harvest worth waiting for is the one that no longer depends on constant inputs. It's the asparagus that returns for 10 years, the self-seeding kale that lives through frost, the tomato volunteers that sprout where last year's fruit fell. No help, no fertilizer, no interference. These are the gifts of a soil allowed to mature, slowly, humbly, deeply. Trusting slow seasons does not mean doing nothing. It means doing the right things at the right time, and then letting the earth take the lead. Winter is the season of surrender. Spring is the season of promise. Summer rewards those who respect the order of things.
And autumn reminds us that cycles, not shortcuts, are the true path to abundance. So when people say, "Why aren't you adding manure?" say, "Because I'm building soil that doesn't depend on me." When they ask, "What will you harvest?" say, "Self-sufficiency." When they laugh at your slow approach, simply smile. Because one day they'll see it. The garden that feeds itself. The soil that never dries. The roots that reach deeper every year. A garden shaped not by inputs, but by understanding. That is the harvest worth waiting for, and it begins in December. So as we stand at the edge of winter and look out over bare beds and sleeping roots, remember this: feeding the soil isn't always about adding more. Sometimes it's about stepping back. Trust the seasons. Trust the silence. Trust the slow work happening beneath the frost. Because the soil that rests now will reward you later in ways no quick fix ever could. Stay humble, stay curious, and above all, stay patient. The earth is always listening.